So this is Baruch of the Tikkun Elevator Kollel, and today is the 5th day of Parshas Terumah. I'm finally able to get back to the Zohar and try to learn a little bit over here. So we're in the Zohar Matuk B'Devash, and we're really at the very beginning of this, as it contains some ideas that are really nice to hear. So the first thing we're going to do is we'll read a little bit of the Zohar without the Matuk B'Devash. So we had been discussing a pasuk. So the pasuk had said, Hanishkafa. Now, let me see here. Where's the pasuk? See, mi zos hanishkafa. Here we go. Mi zos hanishkafa kamo shachar. Who is that can gaze out like in the morning, like a clear, pure view? So beautiful like the moon, bara bright, kachama like the sun, iyuma nidgalos, and actually awesome, something really powerful, like the flags of the host of the army. Now that's the pasuk we've been working on. And over here, we're in a little place where we want to quote the pasuk and see where it's going. So this guy, Iyuma, which referred to the flags, the golim of the different tribes, Tekifa Lagana Alkula. It's powerful, it's strong, and it's there to protect everything. The Hakaden is the Shlima Hasakiva, because now it has the completeness that it needs in order to generate power. And it takes this power from up above, from dimensions beyond the source of power, beyond the simple world. Because how is this possible? Because the two forces that we understand in the world, which is the force of the right, or chesed, the line of chesed, and the force of Gevurah, which is on the left, those two could be united only through Yaakov Avinu. He's able to make the Chibur Lon Kachada, makes them like one. Chibur Lon Kachada, the Elah, up above, that is in Olam Atzilus. The Chibur Lon Kachada, the Satan, also down by us. V'taman Nafkol Tracer Shvatim Kadishim Kagam the Elah. And from this, that is going to come out 12 tribes that we've talked about before in other places. Yaakov Dachav Shalem, so Yaakov was completeness. All Il Rahim Bisrin Almin Kamadokimna. He brings his, now we're talking about the wives of Yaakov, really. So he says, Allah Rahimu, he brings love between Almim into these two different worlds, which really refers to Rachel and Leah. Kamadokimna was explained it before. So if anyone else would do like this, that is to marry two sisters, Megalan Aryan La'ela Besada, it's like revealing, in other words, it's doing like something incestuous both in this world and the next. Garam Debava Betrin Almim, it causes hate in the two worlds. Begarne Peruda Hadab and it causes Peruda, which is separation instead of unity. This is the meaning of this pasuk. So you should not take a woman with her sister in order to litzror. What's swor mean? Lashon sar, pain. This avidu married because they ultimately come out to a position where they're going to hate each other. Now we'll see if we could get to this other in the Matuk B'Devash with a little bit more understanding. So if you want to say like this, didn't we say that Rachel actually was jealous of her sister because she had so many children? That is true. The whole alma the Tahom called to Yuv the love Ihu Allah began the Bechever Kagam the alma Iloah, because all of the desire of the lower world is to try to become like what's taking place in Olam Atzilus, or what we can cause to take place there. And to order also to be able to inherit her place. That is, that, as we talked yesterday, and I'll show you in the drawing in a second what I mean, Beduchta Achra, in another place, to make her grow. Kinas Seifrim Asgias Chochmasa. So we said like this, jealousy is a natural part, and a part of human life. Kinas Seifrim, but those people who have jealousy, that amongst people who Torah students, because there are many different paths in the Torah, Asgias Chochmasa, they cause the Chochmah to grow. So here we're talking about the jealousy that takes place between scholars. We'll get different take on this possibly. Begin to is safer v'safer, because there's different kinds of svarim. There's different, a safer that says one way and a safer that says another way. Excuse me. And they cause a tremendous flow of Chochmasa to come down to them, to Chochmah to come down to them. Now, before we go into this more, let's try to remember what we're talking about. Get to it as well as possible. Here in my drawing, because I like the drawing we made the last time, we had this little drawing of Zeranpin, right? We'll make it blue because he's male. And Zeranpin, this say this is Zeranpin. Now, Zeranpin has lots of different names, so we have to be aware of that. Now, on the side of the back of Zeranpin, so this comes out to be the front of Zeranpin. He faces this way. On his back is the nook for the Zeranpin. Normally, this is the place of Rachel Imenu. So therefore, she is from his chest, approximately from his chest. We had said before, this is the Chabad, Chagat, and the Nai. Now, interesting enough is that the Malchus, this Malchus, will make a mem here, is actually becomes later the Kesser for another Partsav, which is outside of it. But we're talking about Kesser there, that's not our point. We really want to talk about Rachel and another Partsav, which is called Leah. So in the nighttime we had said and explained that during the nighttime Rachel goes down into the lower worlds, Long Bia, tries to resurrect the sparks of Kedusha that are stuck in Olam Sabiyah. When that happens, Leah takes her place. She comes into the place. When the morning comes, because we understand in Kabbalah, the concept of the world goes around. So whatever is moving is going to come to conclusion and change. So what we have in the dark, which is a yichud between Yaakov Avinu, I'm going to put the letter Y there, and Leah. Why? Because Rachel is down in the lower world. Understand this, you'll have a better idea. So Leah then comes and takes up the space of Rachel, and she joins in a yichud with Yaakov Avinu. Now, this is a basic, simple idea, and that's what we're talking about in our Zohar. Now, I was supposed to do this part in red. I forgot to do that. I'm sorry. So we'll go like this, just in case. I will eventually learn how to do this better. Okay, this is a different idea. Now, if we said that this was the front of Yaakov, then we have to say, and it's facing that way, then we have to say that this is the back of Yaakov Avinu, and that's where he finds his wives. Now, this whole thing is about, what we're talking about here is about the relationship between Yaakov Avinu and his wives. Now, let me bring the Zohar over here, and now we'll start learning with the Matak B'Devash, because there's a lot that is hidden here in the words of the Zohar, which I read when we started. So let's see what the Matak B'Devash wants to come and teach us. So now we're still working on that parsha, on that pasuk rather, and which says Eyuma Tekiva Dagan Al Kula. So this Eyuma, which means the flagpoles, the banners. I guess the banner is the right word. Hainu Achar Shenisaknu Partzef Rachel B'chai Brachos. Now, what happens is in the morning, we start building Rachel, coming back. Rachel down in Bia, right? So we're going to bring, give me that red one. We're going to bring Rachel back. We're going to bring her back from here, and her nature is to come back anyway. And so she's going to come back towards Atzilus. And we saw some of the details of that. And this starts to happen in the morning, in Shachris. It's a time of tremendous chesed. So here the language of the Zohar again. He says she is built by the 18 brachos that we say in the Shemona Esrei. And when that happens, she becomes strong enough and is actually dealt straight shefa from Bina. And it grows Rachel up. And Rachel grows and she comes around to a position of face-to-face with their anpin. Az tekifa the Hagana al Kula. So when all of this happens, and now she's getting such a tremendous amount of shefa that's pouring through Zeranpin, she grows. He tekifa v'chazaka, she becomes very strong and powerful. And she develops an awesomeness that frightens the Gentiles around the Jews to protect us. Then is lo shlima v'tekifa le'me'eved chayla. Ki oz yesh lo shlemas v'chayzik la'alos chayil, because now she has the ability to bring up this power. Now the question is, what is chayil? Chayil usually refers to hosts or armies or agents. Behind the la'alos man, that means that to pray. So we had to ask the question. All bracha begins with prayer. So therefore, from the bottom up, that's where the Nuk Rachel is located, and she's able to develop this Mayan Nukvin. But not lo chayla ma'alma ilah, and she takes the strength from the upper world because she draws it into herself. And she brings it, she takes it from Leah. Remember that Leah? Get our drawing back. That Leah has filled up the entire space of the female attribute of Zeranpin along his back. When Rachel starts to come back up, and just follow my lead here, when she starts to come back, all this shefa starts pouring onto her head. And as a result of that, she begins to grow. The Shemona Esrei causes her to grow. Let me see if I can find the place. So we say that she combines herself. She brings all of the shefa that is inside of Leah and has been there through the nighttime. She starts to unite with it. Al Yadei Yaakov, and how does this happen? Because Yaakov Avinu is the middle line. Shuhu Zer Anpin, Shechiber as Rachel v'Leah Yachad, he causes Rachel and Leah to become one entity. Kimi Yichud Zer Anpin v'Leah, because when the Yichud took place between Zer Anpin and Leah, and then Shechas Tipas Yichud El Das Yaakov. So what happens is, as this begins to talk, is the drop that will ultimately be the chasadim that will sweeten up the nukva. He said, "Das Yaakov v'Bishan leYisod." So it comes into the das of Yaakov, spreads throughout his body, winds up in his Yisod. Yaakov in Rachel, and this is the way that Yaakov draws himself together with Rachel. When does this happen? It happens in the part of the Shemona Esrei, which is called Sim Shalom. And this is the secret, and we're also working on this, deeper secret in the Idris Zuta that we're learning in the morning. What does Yaakov really want to do? He wants to connect with the Yisod of the Nukva. So when this is happening, and that Yaakov is steering all of this business in order to be able to make a yichud with the combined Rachel Leah combination, Hebrew, he causes them to come together, Yachad, Zav Leah. So he causes all of them to come together in this yichud of Zer Anpin and Leah. So also down below he makes a joining together, Beyichud Yaakov and Rachel. So these two are happening together as Yaakov is making a yichud, which he has been doing all night long. As Yaakov comes and he makes a chibur with Leah, as the morning starts rolling in and these 18 brachos are coming, Rachel is growing. And as a result of her growing, she is combining herself through the agency of Yaakov Avinu, who wants to mate with her. He said, So now the fact is that Yaakov can make a yichud with both, with Leah and with Rachel. So we could do it down here in this world. Nafka traces shifting kedishin kagam to the Elah. So he says that what happened with Yaakov Avinu, the human, is that the yichud that he was able to make between the two of them actually combined his two wives into one. So he said, and it causes this, therefore, Yaakov Avinu, to bring out the bodies of the Yud Beis Shvatim of the 12 tribes. Hakadoshim, Ka'ayin Shemizamgim Al Yonim, same way that Zohar V'Nuk comes together, and we see that Leah and Rachel and Olam Atzilus, they're now coming together. El Yonim Yatzah Nishmosechem, and this is the process that brings out the neshamas of the Jews. Now, if you think that this is just an idea, what Rebbe Shimon is telling us is actually this is the formation of life that we can understand. The question for us is, can we harmonize with it? Can we get to the idea of that this is really what's going on? So he continues what he's saying and says, Yaakov the Havashlim. Yaakov was perfect because he's the middle line. All el richim berabetrin almim kambedokim. So he says, Yaakov Shehoya Shalom, he was complete. V'hoya Merkava Lezer Anpin. And what does Yaakov, the human being, represent? A chariot, a vehicle that brings Shafa to Zer, it brings our prayers to Zer Anpin. I want to make sure that we understand it's not the Shafa. It's the lack. It's what we're missing. All the things that we want. And think about when you listen to Rabbi Mimran, you listen to Rabbi Nachman, and different meditators and people who are talking about getting close to Dvekas with Hashem, that we have to realize it's something that we have to work on. So he says, Adazad and Silos, Hiknes Avar Bebeis Alamas, and as a result of Yaakov Avinu, he's able to bring, what's his right word? Love. Bebeis Alamos, in these two worlds. What are the two worlds? And remember, the word Olam also means hidden worlds. Shehem Rachel v'Leah. Ratzon Elohim Chayedech Shenase Yaakov the Mater has Rachel v'es Leah. So that Yaakov, the human being, when he married the sisters, Hayedeze Garam Shazer Anpen Yisyacha the Malachim Shtechem. The intention of Yaakov Avinu, and what he actually affected, was bringing the two wives, the spiritual wives, together. Im Shtechem Kamo Shamadno, like we have explained. So let's say like this is Yaakov Avinu. And it said originally, the Zohar said that he was shlim. He was perfect. He was a perfect person that never went off the derech. So he was always perfect. So he says, Shar b'nei nasho. So if anybody else would do what Yaakov did, b'nei anim she'osim kizos, to marry six sisters, shelochim shtei achios. This causes nakedness to be revealed up above. Beleah v'lamata, so lamala beleah up above, and leah v'lamata berachel, and down below in Rachel. It causes hatred. Garim devalva betrin almin v'garim peruda. This causes hatred in the two worlds, and it causes separation. Ki gormish yistalchel anai de'ima, because what happens then is that when there's any hint of sexual impropriety, it causes the nai of Ima, which enters into Zer Anpin and pours out a tremendous shefa from the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, to leave him. Zer Anpin is normally 6 spheros. When Ima comes into Zer Anpin, he becomes 9 spheros. We call it 10 sometimes. It depends on his relationship to Malchus. So he said, the Ima, shenispashta b'kol orech Rachel v'Leah kanal, like that she spreads until the all length of Rachel and Leah. Hey nifrada zuba. But what happens is, instead of them combining, they separate, because that's what happens in sexual avera. This is the meaning of this phrase. V'isha elachoysa dal sikach srur, that she will not take a woman, a man should not take a woman and her sister, and they become srur, they're painful, because they wind up hating each other. Now, we'll go over this little place, and let's see what this says. So we're now on page Hey. You can't see it. There it is. And we'll bring it down so we can read it. V'hi tema, so if you say like this, V'takan decha berachol b'achayse, v'im oisim b'oiskim b'inyan Leah v'rachol. So now we're talking about Leah and Rachel. We're talking about the ones in Olam Atzilus, but are manifest in our world. So he said, Leah v'rachol al yonos. So if you're talking about Olam Atzilus, how is it possible the Torah says that there's jealousy between them? But he says, the Zohar says that's actually 100% true. Because in the upper world there's also an Inyan called Kina. The Torah called to love Ihu el the begin the Begam to the Almari law. Let's see what he says. Now, when he uses the word Olam HaTachton and Olam HaElyon, he's talking about the wives of Yaakov Avinu. Ki Olam HaTachton, which we receive Shuhu Rachel, Kol Tai Vasa, what does her hunger, what does she want? V'cheshka, and her desire, Eida Raba'ela L'Yos Ka'ayin Olam HaElyon Shuhu Leah, all she wants is to be able to inherit the position of Leah. Why? Because Leah is the same height, she reaches the height of Zer Anpin. And for Yichud to take place, they have to be face to face at the same height. So, V'lemeiras Dukta, and to inherit her place. In other words, to move all the way up, V'liyaresh as Makoma. Behind the Kabbalah Lacho, that is, the Matuk has said this several times, to inherit her Kalim, which are the vessels that hold the light. And when she takes over the physical position of Leah, then she comes to the same height as Zer Anpin. So similar to this, it says like this, at a different place. So we have a Gemara over there. Kinas Seifrim as Gias Chochmas. So Kinas Seifrim Tarbe Chochmas. So if you learn in the base medrash, and around people that are learning, then you see that people are jealous of each other. This guy knows more than me, and I would say it better than he would say. That's very similar kind of conversation that everybody goes through. And so the Zohar says, like, V'hocho kinas Seifrim. So now let's take a look at this concept of the jealousy of Sofrim. B'kan so the Inyan hu kinas Seifrim. So now let's get to the secret. There's a secret here. It's not this simple conversation that says that if you have multiple scholars, they will develop a certain level of jealousy amongst, which will promote more study. That's the way that we understand the Pashtas. Now you can say something else. Shekina Seifrim tar bechachma, so it makes more chachma. B'chocha kina Seifer. So here we're using the word kina Seifrim. What does it mean? B'kan so the Inyan shall kina Seifer. Let me tell you the secret. Ge'ilo haya kasav kina Seifrim, as if it was written, the jealousy of Svarim. What's Svarim? Begin to is Sefer v'Sefer, because there's different kinds of books. Right? The Fisha Yesh Sefer Shuchucha Yisod Leah. Now he tells you a secret. The word Sefer is the concept of letting something coming out of your mouth. You're misaper, you're saying it over. This is an act of Yisod in a great way, because it is the Yisod that's pushing this out. That's what Yisod does. It gives it out. So he says, the Fisha Yesh Sefer Shuchucha Yisod Leah. There's a Sefer which refers to the Leah. The Yesh Sefer Shuchucha Yisod Rachel, and once again, there is a Yisod for Rachel. Each one of them are partsufim with 10 spheros. B'choisa kinas benechem. There was a certain amount of jealousy between them. Shenesachta of Rachel b'achoisa, that yet Rachel is now being built together with her sister al chelik hashefa, because what she wants, and she's being built through the portion of the bounty or the bracha that's coming into Leah, hanimshach liyisod Leah, which falls through Leah down into Yisod. That is what Rachel wants. So he said, "Veshuhu yosim ma'ula," because it's a higher level. Rachel is only at the chest. Remember this. Let's look at the drawing one more time. This is the resh for Rachel. Rachel is only from the chest of Zer Anpin, which is at the beginning of his Chagat, and she goes down to the bottom, but she's not in the Rosh. Leah is in the Rosh. That's where all the action is. Rachel wants that. So he said, and as a result of that Leah, Rachel wanted the position of Leah, that she should be rebuilt through her sister, from the portion of Shefa, Leah, that comes into the Yisod of Leah. Which is on a higher level, from the portion that comes into the Yisod of Rachel. Because this kina is that she wants something that Leah has. Asgia Meshicha de Chachmas of the Gabayhu is a Harbachas Tipas Shefa. So it multiplies the flow of the drops of bracha that are coming from up, Shefa from Chachma, Alechem, Shiagia, Gam the Rachel. So the idea is that Rachel is two things. So she is wanting the Shefa that's coming from Leah, but she's also, her Yisod is much lower. Her Yisod is in a different position. So as a result of that, you're taking up the entire space from the top of the head of Rachel, of Leah, down to the bottom, that is the Yisod of Rachel, which is the entire length on Zer Anpin. So now she wants that Chachma. So the subject that we're talking about, which is the pouring out of the Shechma that comes from the right, the top of the right line, which is Chachma. Because the beginning of where the tipa starts, if it comes from an outside light, rosh Zer Anpin, which is up above the head of Zer Anpin, and it's a makif because it's too powerful to come in. It's the makif of Chochma. That's a whole other inyan, and this is Baruch Fleischman here at the Tikkun elevator call out. Hope that we all learned something.